In this penultimate or perhaps the last presentation of Unit 3, we would discuss social transformation. We have seen physical transformation. I gave you the example of transformation from a larva to a butterfly. We have discussed the transformation of business organizations. I did a case study with all my students on the transformation of ITC, formerly Indian Tobacco Company, ITC, from being just a tobacco company to a company which now draws more than 50% of its revenues from non-tobacco trade. I gave you that example. In transformation, we also discussed transformation of Netflix from a company which used to rent DVDs from garages and from stores. It has become one of the largest provider of content on OTT platform Netflix. We also did the operational transformation of General Motors, and we discussed the transformation of Apple under Steve Jobs, how he started the company, how he was removed from the company, and how he came back and he stopped production of more than 70 models. Now let's discuss social transformation. What is social transformation? As is evident that social transformation affects people interactions and lifestyle. Something which is able to change the society at large. Social transformation refers to the process of change in the, let me say, institutionalized relationship or norms or values or hierarchies over time. It is a manner in which society changes due to economic growth or scientific growth or technological innovation. It can be even a war or a political upheaval. But what happens during social transformation is that one moves from a ascribed status to an achieved status. I will explain to you what is ascribed status and what is achieved status. But you imagine the transformation of a city, Kota city. Kota it's a city in Rajasthan, and Kota used to have a cement factory. I think it still has, and a textile plants. But how Kota has been transformed into a hub of education for preparation for medical and IITs. So you have people going from here to Kota to teach on weekends, professors, and coming back. IIT professors who prepare students for the joint entrance examination. Social transformation can take place over time, but from where the society started and where it ended, there is a sea change. Take the example to give you an example of social transformation during the start of industrial era, when mainly populations dependent on agriculture were transformed into populations which were dependent upon the factory output, working in the factories. Transformation of Indian middle class boys and girls who were earlier looking for jobs in government sector, in public sector undertaking, or into organizations which have the nuts and bolt model of business. That means they produce something physical, a car, a cycle, a motorcycle, textile, cement, pharmaceutical, you name, to people who are now engaged in the business of business processing outsourcing or knowledge processing or IT. So one small event or a big event can bring about social transformation. How pandemic has brought about a social transformation, but of course pandemic is, it's a short-lived thing. Society, suppose a society is transformed from a caste caste ridden society into a casteless society. The biggest example of social transformation which comes to my mind is what has happened in the dairy industry in India. From being a milk deficient country, India is the largest producer of milk. And we have to give credit to the way Dr. Varghese Kurian transformed transformed dairying from unorganized, marginalized, small standalone business into a cooperative giant where farmers collaborate, they form a union, they form a union at a village level, then a union is formed at a district level, and then the union was formed at a state level. The union owners of this union are those who contribute milk in this union. That means farmers are the owners. How this movement transformed India from a milk deficient country to a milk surplus country. So after the success of Amul, which was achieved by Dr. Kurian and Shri Tribhuvan Das Patel, who was the chairman of Kera District Society, which popularly known as Amul, they transformed it under and the vision was provided by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Sardar Patel, the Iron Man of India. And later on, this became such a big, such a big movement that India's second Prime Minister, Shri Lal Bahadur Shastri, when he came to Amul, he spent a day with a farmer, with a milk producer in his tiny cottage. He was so impressed. He said, let's replicate this model of Amul to India. Let's replicate this model of Amul to India. And the concept of National Dairy Development Board was formed. So from a small cooperative, it's very interesting as to what happened in that in that in those one or two districts, that it became such a mass movement, and it became a movement for the betterment of the country. It's a fascinating story. This lecture, I will tell you something about social transformation, and I will intersperse my lecture with the journey of Amul, and I will give you the examples from the great man's life, Dr. Varghese Kurian, as to how he transformed. And we will also talk about National Dairy Development Board, and we will also talk about Operation Flood. Just to give you just to give you a glimpse of how India was during the 70s, how Delhi was a there was tremendous scarcity of milk in Delhi, and people would queue up from 5 a.m. in the morning, winter, summer, rainy season, whatever you say. They had to queue up before Delhi Milk Scheme booths to get two bottles of milk of half liter each. One was called toned, one was called buffalo, and it was rationed. So I remember when I was in class fifth. So you can say what, 70, around till 72, 70, 1972, 73. And after 4 5 years, I have seen Mother Dairy booth coming up under National Dairy Development Board, and by 1984, the queues had virtually disappeared. The queues uh, Why 84? I think by 19 yes, by 84 the queues had virtually disappeared. You could go to a mother dairy board with your own empty container, steel container or aluminum container, take two coins, put those coins, and automatically the milk will come out. And the milk was pure milk. It still is pure milk, mother dairy. And mother dairy was set up by National Dairy Development Board, and National Dairy Development Board's head office is still in Amul in Gujarat. And NDDB was developed because Shastriji told Varghese Kurian that whatever you have achieved for Gujarat, we need to replicate it nationwide. So transformation and social transformation. Why I call it social transformation is because it impacted the lives of lakhs and lakhs of farmers in India, and it impacted the nutrition availability to crores and crores of children in India. It's a great story, social transformation. So we will discuss Amul and we will discuss social transformation. But in the next slide, I want to talk to you about ascribed status and achieved status, and then we will go into the Amul story. So a quick view on what in terms of transformation, because transformation is a change of your entire personality, a change of your persona, it's a change of your status. All your coordinates change. Because uh, social transformation cannot be that uh, you know you're working in one company and then you start working in another company. That is not. It's a personal individual transformation. Social transformation. I remember that I was working in Allahabad, and there used to be a village, and I used to see these small school girls and small boys. They would go to attend school. I'm talking of the late 80s, and they would all go to school barefoot. First of all, they would not go to school. Then the government introduced midday meal scheme. When midday meal scheme was introduced, that means all children were getting meal free in the school. So they started going to school at least for the meal. And then uniform was distributed. What happened in a one particular village is uniform was distributed, but shoes were not distributed somehow. So children used to go barefoot. And after 2 years, when I went there, I saw students going to school with shoes also. The status changed. Students who were never children who never went to school, they started going to school wearing uniform. They were given meals free, they were giving books free. It transformed that village. That village produced many officers, that village produced engineers, that village produced nurses. So social transformation. So there is something called an ascribed status. Ascribed status is the social status into which a child is born. For example, if somebody is born in a wealthy family, while others are born into families with low income, this is their ascribed status. If you take United States, don't take just our country, US, gender and racial differences, they form the basis of ascribed status. On the other hand, an achieved status refers to the status that one acquires as a result of his or her education, skills, merit, capabilities. Examples of I gave you the example of the village. So from young children who would never go to school to some of them who became compounders or doctors or technicians or welders, whatever they became, but they had a stable means of livelihood. They did not become criminals. Everybody is gainfully employed or gainfully self-employed in that village. So this is the achieved status. Ascribed status was born to poor families. So government plays transformative role in bringing you up from your ascribed status to your achieved status. Good governments. I remember during that period, Kalyan Singh was the chief minister of Uttar Pradesh, and then Mayawati. Tremendous things happened. A person's status, it determines his or her behavior. There are other things also, which class identification is there, family background is there, but you have understood what is meant by ascribed status and what is meant by achieved status. Normally, in a developmental society, the achieved status is higher than ascribed status. If basic infrastructure of livelihood is made available, so if there is no change in infrastructure, no change in mindset, no interaction with the other people, so if it is a self-contained island, nobody has gone into that island, nobody has come out of that island. Within one generation, there will be very little change, unless some natural, nature-led calamity leads to change in the thinking process of people. Otherwise, they will remain like that. An island with no interaction will continue to remain an island with no interaction. So suppose no traveler would have traveled outside his country, countries would have remained what they are. So interaction, travel, education, struggle, strife, ambition, all these things fuel change from a low ascribed status to an achieved status. Businesses, governments, intellectuals, writers, activists, doctors, engineers, middle class, educated middle class can transform a company into a giant nation. Social status. It's like what Yogi Deveshwar said, we will transform, we will ensure sustainable livelihood for many families, even if tobacco is not sold. How do you ensure sustainable livelihood? Suppose a movement starts in India tomorrow, in which every man who earns more than 1.5 lakh rupee per month keeps a driver. Once again, listen to me carefully. If every man who earns more than 1.5 lakh rupee per month keeps a driver for 15,000, 16,000 rupees, and if this becomes a norm, can you imagine how many employment avenues can be generated for drivers in India? I mean, every one of us collectively can raise, and this is the essence of my teaching you this course of business ethics and values and corporate social responsibility. All of us can aspire to be a part of the big game change in the life of all our fellow Indians. This is a very important slide, and this I have taken from worldatlas.com articles as to what is social transformation process. What is social transformation? This slide taken by this particular website, it beautifully captures three steps that are involved in social transformation. First is called associational embracement. Embracement means gale lagana. Association matlab judav. Associational embracement, in this individuals gives some verbal signs, or it is an individual's verbal recognition and acceptance of the group they want to join. A individual's verbal recognition and acceptance of a group they wish to join. For example, somebody who's in suppose somebody who's in school, he wants to join a degree college, he wants to become a big lawyer, so he would enroll himself in a law degree course, right? So he will start to embrace what he wants to become. Okay. Somebody, as a small child, if somebody wants to, he models or he kind of aspires to be a businessman. He starts to study about businesses, he starts to get impressed, so he tries to embrace that association with that uh, persona, that okay, this is what I want to become, and then wants tries to embrace that image of what he or she wants to become. This is called associational embracement. Second is associational distancing. What does it mean? Suppose uh, let's take a very simplistic example of a person or a young man who who belongs to a particular class, a low income group, and belonging to the lower strata of the pyramid, so to say, and he wants to reach a high position, and he has the aspiration, and he thinks he has the capacity, he can study hard, he can do well, and he can break the stringent hold of poverty. So this is called associational distancing. So he tries to distance himself current from his current social identity. Third is presentation of self. Social transformation involves presentation of self, which means you try to acquire the looks and the personality, the external personality. It reflects in your clothing, it reflects in your mannerism, that you already start to look, you think people will look at your desired social status. Let me explain all these three in a simple perspective. Let us take the son of a auto rickshaw driver. Okay, and this auto rickshaw driver's son, he aspires to become, let us say he aspires to become a teacher. Okay, so first thing is associational embracement. He wants to become a teacher, that means he has to be good at studies, he has to study high, he has to qualify for higher examinations, he has to achieve higher qualifications. So associational embracement, he will start to be in the company of teachers, or he would take upon his teachers as his role models, or he would want to do well in studies. This is associational embracement. Associational distancing, he would like to distance himself. He does not want to become an auto rickshaw driver like his father. He doesn't like this. It's not demeaning to be auto rickshaw driver. I mean, it's an honorable profession. One has to attach dignity of labor, but this person does not want to become an auto rickshaw driver. He will start to distance himself. Suppose, like his other siblings, if his dad comes home in an auto, they will get onto the auto. He will not do that. He wants to distance himself from that. And thirdly, social presentation of self. When he enrolls himself in a college, or he enrolls himself in a postgraduate program, he would like to carry a pen in his pocket, which is the hallmark of a teacher. Who carries pen nowadays? But teachers carry a pen, and he would like to dress up decently, not gaudily, as a teacher. Maybe he will wear a tie or something, and he will carry his books, so he would be seen with books. So even you see, if he's uh, he would like to play the part, look the part. So I have made you understand these are the steps in social transformation. Don't worry if you don't understand it too much. I wanted to present associational embracement, associational distancing, and presenting of self to you. Don't worry, I doubt if a question will be asked you about steps in social transformation, but this is the steps in social transformation, and how individuals, they change during this social transformation. How a company can measure its social impact of a program. We know that many companies have corporate social responsibility initiatives. We have seen the advertisement of Tata in which it says that we also make steel. Of course, Tata Steel makes steel, but it says we also make steel because the emphasis is that the our mission is to make the lives of people better, make the lives of the communities around whom we work. We want to impact the social life of communities, make it better by providing educational facilities or primary health care in some cases more than primary health care, providing educational facilities or innovative transportation solutions to the communities around Tata Steel and also beyond that. So, but how can a company measures the social impact? First of all, that particular department, it has to focus on the outcomes, and this outcome cannot be measured in terms of the client you are servicing. So you have to focus on the outcome and you have to use a logic model. Logic model means the what is the logical linkage between your program, the resources you are putting in that program, the activities that you are carrying under that program, and the output of that program. Who are the participants in the program? And who are the short-term intermediaries? Who are the long-term intermediaries? What is the outcome of your program to a specific problem or to a specific situation? This is often known as your theory of change. How does your program achieve your stated outcomes? For example, you are a small you are a businessman and you have taken it upon yourself that you will uh, try to change the life of girl child in a particular village. So you can have a logic model wherein you will ensure that, suppose you think education is the best way to empower a girl child, and then you sponsor the transportation of all the girl children from that village to a particular government school. You talk to the teachers, talk to them about, discuss with them their learning objectives and their learning outcomes. You take pride in spending time with those small children. Maybe you support them by by engaging ex teachers for them who give them special tuitions. And if they are not able to pay the fees, and if they are not covered under the government program for fees, you provide fees to them. And in the end, you have to focus on outcome. What is your outcome? After 1 year, how many girl children benefited from your program, benefited from your program, and passed one particular standard? So this is also, in the third point we have said, we have to establish a measurement plan. The measurement plan should include more than one outcome measure. So you cannot just say how many students passed a particular class, but they passed with what marks. Okay, what has been their participation in the class. So when you also establish a measurement plan, it also communicates that you are serious about achieving success, isn't it? When you focus on outcomes. And last is that you have to ensure quality. Many times a major cause for poor programs and performances is a lack of fidelity or loyalty to the original plan. Staff keeps on changing, training issues are there, and so the quality of the social program uh, melts halfway. That should not happen. So you have to focus on outcomes. You don't have to focus on the obstacles. You have to overcome the obstacles. You have to focus on the outcomes. You have to develop a logic model. Because of this will happen. So if you provide egg or banana, if you're providing a boiled egg, you're providing so many calories and so much of protein content. You have to establish a measurement plan. If you are worried about the health of the child you are sponsoring, then you have to do a measurement that you will weigh the child, you will go for the eyesight check of the child. uh, so you have to do more than one outcome, not just that the child has passed one examination, and you have to ensure quality. So if you have in mind that you will provide 1500 calorie in a midday meal, you have to ensure that this 1500 calorie encompasses all the nutrients which are required. So I got this slide from the same source, and I thought I should discuss with you. In the last slide, I will discuss with you, not last, actually, after that, we will discuss that Amul case study, or perhaps we will cover it under a different presentation. I will discuss with you a plan, a social program with which I was personally associated, and how we achieved success, and in return how we got the gratitude of the village and the cooperation of the village for many of our activities. So in the concluding part of this lecture, let us discuss a case study, which is this case study has been prepared by me based upon a real project which was stewarded by me in the year 1992 in Allahabad. Allahabad, I used to work in a bottling plant in Allahabad, an LPG bottling plant, and the plant was situated in a village called Jhalwa. Jhalwa, Jhalwa is the name of the village. So, you know, if you see typically a LPG bottling plant, the plant where cylinders which you get at home, which are filled with liquefied petroleum gas, which is a propane butane mixture, essentially, uh, because LPG is highly combustible in nature. LPG is heavier than air, so it tends to settle down. And if it has settled down, and if it gets a small spark anywhere, it can lead to a huge flame or fire. So, normally, these plants during the 70s, when these plants were 70s and 80s, they were set up much outside the city limits, or they were set up in places where there around which there was not much habitation. But during the mid 80s, the fire at Shakur Basti in Delhi, which is a major fire, and the Shakur Basti LPG plant fire is uh, it caused huge damage to the plant, and many people lost their lives, many workers lost their life because of a mishap which happened at the LPG bottling plant. So what had happened was after the 80s, after the fire accident at Shakur Basti, it was decided that new plants will have new guidelines. They will have a lot of buffer area, so that the boundary of a plant does not ever come in contact with the village, or with any household in a village or a town or whatever. But this Allahabad plant was an old plant, and it was the only plant in eastern UP. Even Lucknow did not have a plant, and the only other plant which was there was in Kanpur. So this plant in Allahabad, it was looking after not only Allahabad district, Allahabad Varanasi district, Mughal Sarai, Gorakhpur. It was looking after Rai Bareli. It was looking after Amethi. It was looking after Pratapgarh. So it was looking after many districts of eastern UP, and there was no other plant. The only other plant the company had planned was in Varanasi, but it was still in the when I was in the plant, it was still in the stage of procuring the land. So what was done was that we needed to be very careful. We needed to operate this plant, and we needed to be very careful that the plant never got fire, never caught fire, and also that the plant will always be always be considered as an asset which was supposed to be kept safe, not only by the plant officials and plant workers, but even by the villagers. So we needed to develop some kind of a rapport with the uh, villagers around us. And of course, we would go there, we would before Deepavali, because before during Deepavali, the villagers would burn a lot of crackers, and they would even burn rockets. They would even fire rockets, and there was always a danger of the rocket coming, falling into the plant. Of course, at night there were no operations. After 10 p.m. there were no operations, and during Diwali we were extra careful with the safety and security. But we still thought that we needed to develop some kind of a more repo, so that the the villagers around us, they considered us as not aliens, not somebody from the third world, but somebody, but people who were their own people. So we thought of doing something. We thought of doing some kind of a social program in that village, and the rationale behind that social plan was very clear, that uh, we wanted to generally do something good for the village, and we wanted to enhance our own image as good corporate people. And whenever we needed to have a communication with the village, we wanted that we must have a ready uh, interactive platform with them. So the rationale behind the plan was this: we had clear goals. We thought that because men were generally busy in the field, or they would work, or they were workers, so we thought we should have a dialogue with the women of the village, and to have a dialogue with the women of the village, because women are also influencers as far as children are concerned. So our goals were very clear. We wanted to talk to women, and we started. We took the help of some of the lady employees, and we came to know that in that village, most of the adult women were uneducated. They were illiterate. Most of them were illiterate. While men were literate, most of the women was illiterate. So we devised a plan that we would be propagating literacy among the women of that village. So, and we will make all the women of that village literate. And by literate, it does not just mean that they should be able to put their signature. We thought they should also all be able to read some basic book. So we thought of Ramcharitramanas or some other book which they would relate to. So rationale behind the plan was to have a rapport with them, and to have a good image among them, so that we could help them and they could help us in any time of crisis, namely fire instances. Clear goal was to have a rapport with the women. So women were our they were our target customers, so to say. And we involved the local teacher in the village had a primary school, and there was a woman, there was a lady teacher. So we involved her in the mission, and we also involved the Rotary Club of Illhabad in that mission, and I was put in charge. So the women sent the lady teacher, she sent the message around that free literacy classes, free education classes to read and write would be held, and everybody would be given some kind of snacks there every day. So we got a budget approved from our head office. Our people, our Indian Oil Corporation readily approved. They were very happy. They were very happy with any initiative which was taken to for furthering the cause of the communities around us. Indian Oil Corporation is an excellent, very good corporate citizen, a great public sector undertaking. So I went to Delhi. I went and I met the director of the Adult Literacy Mission program. He gave me the books which were supposed to be taught, which were supposed to be used and taught to the old people. And I carried that bundle with me from Delhi to Allahabad. And we said that we will measure the results also. So actually, if I went to the literacy class every day, the women will feel very awkward. I was newly married. I involved my wife. She would go there actually, and she would interact with the teachers and the lady teacher whom we had hired. The lady teacher was at that time getting around 600 rupees per month as salary, and we agreed to pay her 600 rupees salary. double immediately. So she was very happy, and she had to teach only 1 or 2 hours after the school was after her regular duties were over from the school. Also, we tried to send a message to the women that because they started enjoying to be able to read and write, so it was a signal for them to also send their daughters to school, to regular schools. And then we came to know how exactly it benefited the community. A literate woman, also, if she is interacting with a teacher every day, and they are not just discussing kaka gaga every day, they are also discussing something, some political things. They are also discussing something about the village. They're gossiping also, but they are also discussing things which are beneficial to them. For example, what is a recurring deposit? What is a fixed deposit in a bank? What is meant by insurance? How can by paying a very small insurance they can cover their get a life cover for themselves? It benefited the community. We measured the results. We ran this program for 1.5 years, and we were able to achieve. It was not 100%, but whomsoever was got enrolled in our class became literate. They were able to sign, read, and write. Basic small books. They were able to basic small school level books like Rani Madan Amar, those kind of books. No, they were able to read, and it created so much of excitement for them that they were able to read. On the final day, when my chief corporate communication manager, Mr. C.K. Srimohan, he came. He was so happy, and our executive director gave me a special commendation letter lauding my effort. So I was also very motivated, and the joy uh, of actually having played some part in enhancing the lives of our own sisters and mothers and small girls. It gave me so much joy. So it benefited community. These adult women who became literate, they fought with their husbands to ensure that their daughters also went to the school. The banking activity increased. There was an awareness among women when they dealt with the local shopkeepers. They knew what is maximum retail price. They would argue with him if the shopkeeper would like to give them something which was beyond the MRP. See how it impacts. They came to know how to read the electricity meter. They came to know how to read the electricity bill. If there was any new development or announcement through the newspapers, they came to know about it. So I thought I should discuss this case with you. So I've discussed with you the rationale behind the plan, the clear goals, the involvement of local influencers, the results, and how it benefited communities. Any any one of you who will tomorrow work in the corporate sector and who will take care of the corporate communications or communities programs. So I wanted to give you a first-hand uh, idea about how to go about with these community plans. And mind you, not it's vast amounts of budgets are not required. What it requires is clear thinking, a clear plan, and you need to execute that plan very well. And you need to be able to understand what is the budget which is required. Not huge budgets are required. And how can other people help you? For example, Rotary Club helped us a lot by paying the salary of the class teacher. No, it was not Rotary, it was internal corporation, but Rotary helped us by organizing various events, by coming there. The women uh, from the city came. They would interact, the Rotary, the women members of Rotary Club. They would encourage these women. In fact, a doctor came. She also conducted a health checkup for the woman. And actually, she conducted a health checkup 2, 3 times. What is blood pressure? How do you take temperature? All the things she that lady doctor taught them. So, how to leverage other good people who could be willing to contribute to your cause. Any social program which you will run as a part of your corporate duty, you will see there are many willing players who are more than happy to help you in this noble cause. There are more good men and women than bad men and women. This is another thing which I learned when I was involved in this community plan. Of course, there will be people who will try to drag you down, but you just have to move on. You have to have your vision and you have to move on. I'm sure you would have understood how to run a social program, even if you are doing it from a corporate platform. Thank you.